It was almost midnight when Jimmy flagged a taxi. The rain was relentless, soaking his jacket and making the city lights blur into streaks of orange and white. The driver nodded but didn't speak. The car smelled faintly of cigarettes and something else Jimmy couldn't identify. He told himself it was just a long day catching up with friends, that he was imagining things. But as they drove, something felt wrong. The streets repeated themselves, familiar corners appearing over and over as if the city was folding in on itself. Jimmy laughed nervously, blaming exhaustion. "I must have missed a turn," he muttered. But the taxi never turned. It kept going straight, past empty shops, dark alleys, and streetlights flickering in the drizzle. He glanced at the driver, still silent, eyes straight ahead, a tight, unsettling smile that didn't reach them eyes. Jimmy's pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed to get out, but every time he tried to open the door, the lock refused. And then the GPS on his phone circled endlessly, like the city itself had no end. Jimmy had taken taxis before, countless times, but tonight felt different. The rain-slicked streets shone like black glass under the streetlights, and the usual city noises were strangely muted. A lone horn in the distance, a single dripping gutter, nothing else. The driver's hand stayed firmly on the wheel, knuckles pale against the leather. His jaw was tight, expression unreadable, eyes never leaving the road. "Excuse me," Jimmy said, voice shaking. "Could you maybe turn right at the next intersection?" The driver didn't answer. Just a subtle tilt of his head, a soft exhale through his nose, and the car kept moving forward. The street ahead was familiar, too familiar. Jimmy blinked, trying to shake the disorienting feeling. Every corner, every lamppost seemed to mirror the previous one exactly. His stomach sank. He tapped the driver's shoulder. "I need to get off. Here, stop!" Nothing. Panic welled up like hot water, sudden and suffocating. Jimmy leaned toward the door. The handle wouldn't budge. It clicked, locked, and stayed firm. He pounded on it, shouting, but the sound was swallowed by the rain outside like the city itself was swallowing his voice. The taxi kept driving, past a bakery closed for the night, its neon sign flickering, past an intersection where familiar convenience stores should have been, but it was gone. Only darkness, wet asphalt, and the low hum of the engine. Jimmy's hands shook on his knees. The driver glanced at him for a brief moment, a smile barely visible, eyes gleaming in the dim dashboard light. A cold chill ran down Jimmy's spine. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Jimmy had lost track. The streets blurred into one continuous tunnel of shadow and rain, and the GPS spun wildly, showing a route that circled endlessly, never reaching any destination. Jimmy's phone had no signal, no messages, no calls, just the spinning dot, moving forward, yet going nowhere. He tried to reason with himself. "It's the storm. I'm tired. Maybe I fell asleep for a moment." But his soaked clothes, the persistent cold, and the rhythmic swish of the wipers reminded him he was wide awake. He shouted at the driver again, louder this time. "Stop! Pull over! I'll pay double! Just let me out!" The driver laughed then, a soft, low chuckle, almost a whisper, yet chilling. "Where would you go?" he asked finally, voice smooth, monotone. "The city doesn't want you there." His heart hammered. "What do you mean?" "You'll see," the driver replied, eyes glinting. "Eventually, everyone sees." The car turned slightly, not at an intersection, not according to any map, just a subtle drift to the left, and the buildings on either side seemed to bend, stretch, then disappear entirely. Trees replaced lampposts, shadows replacing the puddles. and the rain sounded heavier, louder, as if it were falling straight into Jimmy's ears. His hands trembled violently now, gripping the seat as if holding on could anchor him to reality. He remembered reading online about urban legends, endless taxi rides, disappearing roads, ghost drivers, but he had never imagined himself trapped inside one, and yet here he was, reality folding over him like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. His breaths came fast, shallow. He tried calling his friends, anyone, but the phone simply displayed no service. Minutes, hours, he couldn't tell. The streetlights returned, faint and flickering, a familiar intersection, but wrong. Buildings leaned at unnatural angles. A child's laughter echoed briefly from somewhere behind him, vanishing as quickly as it came. He dared not look back. "Why are you doing this?" he cried, voice cracking. The driver didn't answer immediately. He kept his eyes forward, steady, almost hypnotic. Some passengers, they don't appreciate the journey. They demand the destination. Jimmy's stomach churned. He realized he hadn't eaten all day. He hadn't slept. He hadn't even realized how cold he was until his teeth chattered uncontrollably. He wanted to scream, to pray, to do anything that could make this end. But the city outside, if it was even a city, stretched endlessly, streets bending in impossible patterns, lights that couldn't exist, and shadows that moved on their own. Then, in the corner of his eye, he saw something else. Another taxi. Same make, same model. And inside, a passenger. Him. Or someone that looked exactly like him, staring back, mouth opening, screaming silently. Jimmy's heart leapt painfully. He spun toward the driver. "Stop! Stop the car, now!" The driver only smiled wider, the dim dashboard light illuminating teeth, too white, too perfect. "The city doesn't belong to you, and tonight it will teach you that lesson." Jimmy's stomach pumped like a drum in his ears. He tried wrenching the door open again, but it wouldn't budge. Tried reasoning, trying to think of a way out. But the taxi kept moving forward, endlessly forward, through streets that were no longer streets, buildings that twisted into impossible shapes, and always the sound of the engine, low, steady, inescapable. Somewhere ahead, he thought he saw people. Shadows, perhaps, or figures walking aimlessly. He shouted for help, but they didn't respond. They didn't notice him. And above him, the sky, if it could still be called sky, was a deep, undulating gray, like thick smoke that refused to disperse. He tried closing his eyes, breathing slowly, counting, hoping it was just exhaustion. But even when he closed his eyes, he could feel the taxi moving, the driver's hands steady, the world outside warping. And then he realized there was no traffic, no other cars, no sound of the city except for the steady hum of this taxi carrying him further into somewhere. The hours, or maybe days, blurred together. Jimmy began muttering to himself, laughing, crying, pleading. Nothing changed. Every street looked like the last. Every turn mirrored another. Every shadow seemed alive. And then at some point he couldn't mark. He just stared. The driver finally spoke again. "Some journeys," he said softly, almost kindly. "They never end. But you'll see. Eventually, you'll understand." Jimmy's hand slipped from his knees. His body sagged in exhaustion. And then a strange calmness came over him. Not peace, not relief, but a hollow acceptance. The city was endless, the taxi eternal, and the driver inevitable.